Hello, YouTube and the internet and everyone else. Cuffy Proctor here. It's been a little bit since I made a video, but I felt like this one was really kind of important, and I'm actually going to spend some time trying to spread this around. So, before we get started, if you get to the end of it and you find that you really, can get behind what I'm saying here and whatnot, spread the word, because I think that it's important that we all know that we have support systems. A lot of people like to say they have support systems or they are support systems, and then when the person reaches out, they're not there. They're nowhere to be found, and then before you know it, people die. So today's YouTube video is about mental health and the fact that it's kind of a broken system nationally and right here in my own state in New Hampshire. We struggle a lot with mental health, I think, because of the overwhelming amount of people suffering with mental illness that genuinely they need help. And at the end of the day, they let things like what people think of them and what the world thinks about mental illness get in front of them getting help. So let's go down the road of, like depression and anxiety and these things that people deal with. They're real illnesses. I mean, I can't emphasize this enough. What people deal with in their brains is just as real as any physical illness. And although you may have your own opinions on that, it's not up for debate. It is a reality, and people suffer and are drowning in it. That's not to say that at the same time we live in a natural environment that doesn't really give a shit about how you feel. Unfortunately, we live in a jungle of reality that we've tried to civilize and tried to make as civilized as we can and make these constructs of what we deem reality and time to be. But at the end of the day, a plane could fly into your house, an alligator could eat your dog, like fucking anything can happen. The world's crazy fucking place out there. And a lot of us, feel like we've painted a society, this is really what we're doing. We're creating it. We're manifesting this reality right in front of us, to not really be completely compassionate towards people who suffer from mental illness. If we don't understand, everything's perception, and we live in our own realities and our own consciousness. Our own ego, it gets in the way a lot. But it's a mess, because it doesn't do anything to really help anybody. We live in this perception of ourselves through the lens of other people. If you understand what I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is that we care too much about what other people are thinking of us, and then in turn adjust our reality based on that. You can't control what other people do. You can't control anybody but yourself. And I think a lot of times in relationships, it's that same fucking unhealthy dynamic where you have somebody trying to change the other person, and in reality, they got together and started smashing because they're physically attracted to each other, but they never really thought, is this person, spiritually, energetically, whatever you want, behaviorally, where I'm at? And the answer is usually no, because we, as creatures, impulsively find things that we find attractive, and then we want to fuck it. That's just what it is. I mean, people do that. Been doing it for as long as we've been around. And that's kind of how we mate. Now that we've realized that, a lot of these constructs that we created, marriage and monogamy and stuff, are really kind of going out the window, because they're constructs we've created. They're not indicative to nature. Creatures don't naturally operate that way, but due to religion and so on and so forth, we We choose to change our habits and what we do and how we relate to other people. And in turn, how we mate with other people and find relationships. And then we stay in these unhealthy relationships where somebody's battering you and you're battering them. And give or take, fault, it doesn't fucking matter. You can pass it around and take it, and give or take, it doesn't fucking matter. Blame and fault can be always handed out in both directions, almost always. Even if you have somebody who's being severely abused, there's some sort of dynamic that's unhealthy there. Not saying, not a, by any means blaming the abuser. I mean, the victim. Victim shaming is no bueno, but at the same time, there's an amount of self-responsibility that becomes in that person getting out of that for their kids, for themselves. And that's where the safe space conversation comes, is shouldn't there be some sort of a foundation for women to escape unhealthy households by just having a basic $12,000 a year in their pocket, or having better mental health access, or better ways to get out of a domestically violent relationship. But we were talking about mental health, and that's where we're going to go back to. But I guess where I was going with that is that you have these dynamics that are really unhealthy in both directions. Sometimes, obviously it's really heavy in one direction. Somebody's beating their significant other, or physically abusing them, mentally abusing them, gaslighting them, whatever it may be. It's a really unhealthy environment. But usually there's some sort of dynamic in the relationship that allows that to, structure itself in the relationship. And I say this lightly because, it really is nobody's fault to get caught in an unhealthy relationship. I myself was in an unhealthy relationship. There was a lot of dynamics that were unhealthy, and nothing will ever, ever change the way I felt about my wife. I love her more than anything in the world, and I still miss her every day of my life, to the point where it's earth-shattering. But we didn't have a healthy dynamic, and we stayed in a relationship for longer than we needed to. We should have exited that relationship, before we did. And the reason why we didn't wasn't necessarily the normal reasons: staying together for the kids, staying together for, family, a job. Some of it was health insurance and finances. But it's also because you care about the other person, and you don't want to see them spiral into a, unhealthy behavior, whatever it may be. It goes for me as well. But what you got to remind yourself, there's, in the dynamic of a relationship, is you can't change what the other person's going to do. You have to work on yourself, create an environment that betters yourself, and keep moving with that, and don't let things hold you down. You don't need to shove it in other people's face, and really, you don't need to force other people into your belief system and what you're trying to do to change it. But focusing on what you're doing is the answer, I think, in those circumstances. Unhealthy relationships create dynamics that create further unhealthy relationships, and it becomes a blame game. And a lot of times it's a balance of unhealthy behaviors on both sides of the spectrum. But nobody can ever look interior to stop when they're angry and go, am I doing something wrong? Am I being an asshole? I mean, even you see yourself from an outside perspective sometimes, punching a wall, or, being a Kyle or Chad. Just kidding. For all the Kyles and Chads listening. Sorry. It's a internet cliche that I guess probably should disappear. But I have put my fist through a wall before. And it never be out of anger or out of frustration that I couldn't fix the issue, that I couldn't save somebody else. But you can't save anybody but yourself. A lot of times people can't even do that. But in order to take care of the person you're with, or your child for that matter, you have to, absolutely have to, be and one with yourself. And I speak a lot about this. And I do so hypocritically a lot of times, I think, because I can't even follow through with a lot of that. But I know it, and I know what I'm trying for. And little steps. Don't set up big lists to fucking, crash and burn and then ultimately hate yourself for it. Just personal experience. I'm not saying that that's everybody's struggle, but the things that, are really important is that you can control yourself and what you do. You can't control other people. But if you work and better yourself, the other people around you will start to change and adapt and things. And you'll start to see things naturally weed themselves out. And there are some circumstances that are so deeply entangled that it almost seems impossible to get out. But positivity is the name of the game here. Manifesting our realities, whether you think it's true spiritually or whatever, I do believe that we manifest our realities. At least energetically, from a how do you put it? A personal, self-growth energy kind of thing. We manifest our realities. We're depressed and upset about it, and then more shit happens. When you're upset and things suck, things get worse. That day gets worse. Now, I'm not saying the secret here, that, the energy, if you just hum, everything's going to come to you. But, there is some logic behind some of it, even from a scientific standpoint, that we connect to each other emotionally and energetically. It would make sense that we attract a lot of the negative behaviors and stuff that we're seeing in ourselves and realities. But not so. This is going to be now a 20-minute video because I'm already at 12 minutes, and I have a few other things to go over. I think that we really just need to focus on ourselves. But the most important thing, starting with mental illness and depression, is destigmatizing mental illness and depression. These are realities that a majority of Americans deal with. And whether it's a condition of society that we weren't meant to be in boxes and in front of TVs, that we were meant to be hunting, and our brains have evolved and our society has evolved faster than our biology has evolved. I think that's important to recognize, that stigmatizing this and be like, oh, well, blah, 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 they're just a fucking drug addict. They're just a fucking alcoholic. They're just a fucking... I think most of the time, alcoholism, drug addiction is not a disease of character. It's a symptom of mental illness, being self-medicated, because our mental health system is so broken that people literally try to escape from reality to death. And I've lost somebody, too many people, from this exact thing, and it's despair illness that's taking people. It's depression and a lack of feeling of worth, because we've cornered ourselves into this reality where if you're not, an MRI tech or you're not contributing to GDP, then you're a strain on society. You're a fucking a carbuncle on society, that instead of seeing you as a value, they see you as a drain on the system. And in reality, we all have something to add. And as creativity and Netflix and all this stuff becomes more of a popularity, we're shifting into this artisanry. It's not just all for naught that hipsters have gone back to vinyl and drinking out of mason jars and the organic reality that we live in, because the digital age and everything has changed. And it's just this I think innate nature of us to go back to nature and try to just separate ourselves from other stuff, because I think that it's adding to depression. And that's where I think social media becomes a really big fucking problem. Social media is driving almost all of this shit when we could be using it for things like this, where we're communicating to you that you're not alone. You're not fucking alone. And that some of us wear it well. We put ourselves together. We fucking put the lipstick on. We fucking go out and we function. Sales, selling appliances, you know, taking care of kids, you know, being teachers, welding, whatever it is. There's a lot of people that just put on the mask and they do it anyway. But it doesn't mean there isn't still this overwhelming, brutal reality that's hanging on them day to day. And so doing what reinforces those creativities, that reinforces you as a person. You're not your GDP, you're not your shit job at McDonald's or even your good job at, you know, Bank of America. Like, you're not your job, you're not your IKEA furniture, you're not your fucking khakis. Chuck Palahniuk, I really admire Fight Club for that reason. We aren't our connection to things. We are the species that we've been for thousands of years that have now thrust ourselves into a new age of technology, and we're just stupidly trying to adapt. And because of it, we're dealing with all of these different facets of mental illness. I mean, mental illness predates and goes back only so far, because before the fucking 40s or wherever the fuck it was, we stopped throwing people into fucking, you know, mental asylums and lobotomizing them and doing everything we know, everything we did to gain the knowledge we have now about mental science was on the backs of torture and horrific, awful, procedures that just have paved the way to medical science now. If not for those procedures, we would know what we know now. But how much do we really know, right? How much do we really know about SSRIs and what they're doing for our bodies? How much do we really know about bipolar disorder or all of these things that are happening? How much do we know about them just being chemical, you know, inconsistencies? Or is it that we've created a new civilization that not all of us fit into these little boxes? That maybe somebody like me with attention deficit disorder or whatever, and I struggle a lot with my ability to stay on task, stay on top of things, be a great dad, like all these things that, you know, maybe would have been a different role in another reality. It is what it is now. We have to adapt. So stay busy. Don't self-medicate. I will never trash marijuana. I absolutely think cannabis is a lifesaver for a lot of people. Not because I think it solves the world's problems. And it's certainly a substance. Here, here. But as somebody who personally struggles with mental illness, struggles with motivational issues, ADHD, real pain that I can't even, that's a whole other video. But to the point where I was on oxycodone, 100 plus milligrams a day, 120 at one point, I think, because of my ankle disabilities, defects. They're really awful. It pops and sometimes it's horrific pain. But right now, I'm using cannabis, gabapentin, which I have my issues with, and tramadol, which I also have my issues with. But I'm trying to take those other less harsh medications as an alternative, because let's face it, cannabis doesn't solve everything. It doesn't, fix everything. But it does solve a lot for pain management. But I don't think that you should self-medicate your problems away. I don't think that smoking to fix your problems is going to work. You're going to end up right back where you are. I think at this point in my life, if I wasn't trying to maintain the pain management thing and balancing that fucking tightrope. I probably wouldn't even be on any substances because I've choose to eliminate my ADHD medication. I'm on Strattera now instead of Adderall or Ritalin. I'm trying to use alternatives, and because chemicals do help. They help rebalance our brain. But I know me, and I do know that although I need these medications, and society has deemed me to need these medications, especially ADHD, I think, the pain management is a whole other discussion of people saying pull yourself up, pull yourself through it. But I deal with some really severe pain. The ADHD, kind of the same thing, with a lot of people just thinking you could just pull yourself through it. It's not for everybody. But in some ways, they're not completely off, because I do believe that if I were to lose weight, my ankles would improve, which I'm losing weight, so awesome. So we're on a good track. My goal is to lose the weight, decrease the pain, decrease the meds, decrease cannabis, decrease all that stuff. But health and exercise is the most important thing that I can emphasize here. I'm not obviously super healthy. I'm very, I am overweight, and I'm, losing the weight, which is good. But cardio really helps a lot with that, and that's something that I don't really get to do because of the ankles. I need to get into a pool, so on and so forth. We're getting really on with the time here in this video, so I apologize. I ramble a lot. Hence the name of the podcast, Abstract Transmissions. I'm doing it right now. But where we were going was, see, I forgot where we were going, thanks to ADHD. Self-medicating is not a great answer, because drinking for depression, doing cocaine or whatever for ADHD, they really don't work. And I'll be honest with you, I do or even argue that the ADHD medications might not even be the best solution. And I think that really, if we had a better society, and unfortunately we don't, there'd be better conditions for people to focus on meditating, changing their health patterns, introducing better fats, less animal fats, more of the healthier fats like avocado and stuff like that, that promote certain type of brain growth. Some of the more natural things, but I'm not, hippy-dippy about it. I realize that medication is a necessity for a lot of people, and I'm not suggesting that people need to change it, but I think that we could decrease the amount of medication. I think we throw meds at fucking everything. And I feel like cannabis, I guess what I was getting to earlier, just helps decrease a lot of those meds, and it's more natural. Sure, I'm smoking, that's not natural, but tincture is really, if my tolerance is so high, I probably wouldn't smoke at all. I would only use tincture and edibles, but at this point I could eat a 300 milligram chocolate bar and fucking go sell appliances if I still did that, but I don't. So here I am making YouTube videos for all you fine fucking people, and eventually I'll have a Patreon up, because I'm dragging ass because of mental illness, and because of some days I stare at social media. I'm no better than anybody else. And that's why I'm making this video right now, because I'm trying to stay busy. I'm trying not to self-medicate, with video games, because that's my thing. But at the end of the day, I think that you need to move on from what you can't control. It goes to you guys in the Yang Gang out there, that were like so just brutally diminished by Yang dropping out, but he makes a lot of calculated decisions. He's a smart guy. I think he made the right move at the right time, and look at that. He's in the media. He's the internet's new favorite politician, that he wasn't even a politician. So he did amazing. And you got to focus on what you can. You got to really chip away at lists. Lists, and for you internet people out there or digital people out there, I use lists on my phone, but I make sure I keep the list open. So it says keep the list on, keep selected items, remaining on this. You can basically see what you've already accomplished. And that's why paper lists are nice, because you're checking it off and you can see, look at all the things I did today. Which is a weird fucking Winnie the Pooh, like, oh, be proud of yourself, pat yourself on the back kind of thing. But you need to do that. Because you need to have that proud of yourself, focusing on what you can, but being proud of who you are, because each and every one of us have something to offer the world. You may have not found it yet. You may not figured it out. Some people never do, and that's the sad thing. Some people never find love. Some people never find their reality and what they're meant to be. But I can tell you, most of us, it's not sitting in front of a fucking computer screen all day, monitoring stocks or, doing your day job, whatever it may be. You need to wake up every morning, and this has been my big thing. Like, I don't really like the whole term big dick energy, but I think it's funny. It makes me laugh because I don't know. It's this characterization in my head. This guy with this abnormally large dick that he can't carry around, but he's got this energy, but he's still going to, find ways to make it. I don't know. Tangent. Big dick energy. Like, carry yourself like you are the person you are gonna be or want to be. You may not be there yet, but carry yourself as if you already are that person, and you keep driving towards that. Be humble about it. Definitely stop self-analyzing everything you say, what everyone is saying. For the love of God, not everyone thinks you're a shithead and they want to hurt your feelings or oh, fuck that person, and the fake smile. Not everybody's doing that. And that's why I think there's a lot of you out there that struggle with social anxiety, and a big key to that social anxiety is just not giving a fuck about what everybody else thinks about you. And I know that's really easy to say, and I'm not saying that, like, just don't give a fuck. It's so easy, because it's not easy, and I understand it's not easy. But it is the key, because you can't control people around you. You can only control you. You can only control what you do. And if they are that person and they think that, fuck them. Let them think that. Let them judge you. They don't know you. Prove them wrong later. It doesn't matter. That's the point, because you live for fucking 70 plus years on this planet, maybe, if you're lucky. I think that's the average is 70. Some people longer, a lot of people shorter. During that time, 20% of it's spent sleeping. So you get what? A couple decades to work with. In this reality, you hit the lottery of living, right? People ask why they're here. Nobody knows. Not yet. But when I hear people say, I hate my life, I feel like it's just because they hate the life that they exist in. And a lot of times it's not their fault. Sometimes it is, too. But the answer isn't drowning yourself in self-hate and what other people think. Meditating, really learning about yourself and who you really are and who you lie to and why. How many times have you lied to yourself? How many times have you lied to the person that you would die for? And why? I think the answer is we're afraid of growth and change and pain from that growth. It's necessary to go through some of this stuff. It's necessary to feel depression and being unsure and anxiety and stuff. But it's also necessary to find your way through them and find out about yourself because of those things. And if we just stay in that shell and never burst out of it, we're never going to get stronger. We're never going to better ourselves. A lot of us will die. A lot of us will kill ourselves because we can't fathom that reality. But I don't think that that's the answer. I think that the answer is self-growth. Introspectively asking questions about yourself. I really do think that we need to be proud of ourselves and have those lists and stuff, but do little things starting out. It takes 5 weeks to form any habits, any any real habits. And that's that's true. That's definitely true. That's a fact. It may be closer to 4 weeks for some people, but for most people, it's about 5 weeks, a little over a month, and you can get a habit down if you just do it daily. Lists are a big one. I'm trying to do lists, and increasingly, I'm getting more and more lists. I even have a crappy little list that I wrote out for this thing, and that's why it's taken almost 30 minutes to do it, because I didn't want to miss any of the points. But it's also helped me get back to where I was when I fell off topic. So I'll leave you guys with this. Stop worrying about what other people are saying about you. Stop worrying about being judged, and just also don't judge people and what they're going through. Because you've been through it too, probably. And although you may not admit it to yourself, or you can't admit it to others, there's reality in this for everybody. I think we all have self-doubt in certain things, and whether we accept it and share it with other people and talk about it on fucking YouTube to air our own personal dirty laundry out for the whole world is irrelevant. I think what matters is that you start to have those self-realizations, self-care. You start to make small changes in the right direction. You stay in the right direction, focusing on what you can change. And then really, I think it's downhill from there. I think once you start going, I've seen this in my own life. There's a lot of really hard moments that I just wonder if I'm even able to get through. But even now, like I choose to stop taking Tramadol for a couple of days just to keep my body in check and make sure that, I'm sure, doctors would disagree with this, but keep it so it's in my system or whatever. That way I'm not, I hate the idea of becoming completely reliant on anything. So every like month or two or whatever, I'll try to like just cut back entirely. But just ask yourself questions, uncomfortable questions about yourself, because it's important for self-growth. I think a lot of us are more addicted to our phone and to alcohol and to our video games than we, or even our pot, than we care to admit. But I do feel like moderation is an important part of this. That even, alcohol, anything, moderation is super important, that people can learn moderation, because again, I don't think it's drug addiction and addiction in general that's the problem. I think it's rooted in mental illness, and we need to destigmatize that. Get somebody in the White House, just so everybody knows that even the president has a psychologist. Like, it's normal. Everybody should talk to somebody. Everyone, even if you think you don't have problems, talk to somebody. You'd be surprised how much you'll find out about yourself and start asking questions about yourself. It's the best thing I can say. And thank you guys for listening, as always. If you got all the way through this 33 minutes, I really appreciate it. Put a like and a comment down below and spread the word. Covey Proctor, I'll make a lot more of these videos moving forward. I'm going to keep on trying and keep on pushing. It's hard to pull myself together to do it sometimes, or balance it out in the rest of my life with music and all that stuff. Sometimes you just don't want to. You just don't want to do anything. Don't want to, full stop. So, thank you again, and as always, reach out to somebody, see if they're okay. Don't just say, I'm a support system. Be a support system. Because there's a lot of people out there that seek that person that says that they're there for them, and then they don't find that person, and they end up not with us anymore. So I can't emphasize this enough. Try to reach out, because even when you're suffering from depression and mental illness, you supporting somebody else may help you in your own battle, because we find comfort in connection. We find realizations about ourselves in connection with other people. I feel like I've learned more about myself from other people than I have being introspective. Just asking questions. Am I that person? So yeah. It's gone on long enough. Thank you so much for listening, and if you can, spread the word about the channel. Take care.